And we're live.
All right, welcome everybody. We are episode 4, reprogramming your self-talk here on Inner Child Outer Adult podcast. Thank you guys for joining us. We're really excited. We have a really good episode this episode What's it?
Evening.
Evening. I'm a little off, everybody. I've been sick for the last week, so I've been just kind of like bouncing back and forth between like a flu and then cold congestion, like one right after the other. So I'm still kind of getting my bearings back with me.
It's the
So,
pits. Sometimes being human is the absolute pits.
right? And it's like when you want to have like motivation, you're like, I'm motivated. I'm gonna get some things done. Like this has happened to me a couple of times lately, which is I think where the self talk is gonna come in. I'm
Yeah.
like sitting there and I'm motivated. I want to do this. I'm gonna do this because like we were just talking. Like I revamped the website, got it up and going. I'm so excited about it. And I'm like, all right, I can go live and I can get people to go there, go check it out. And as a projector, I'm like, I'm gonna be seen. They're gonna see the work I did. And then like I got sick. Right after like the day, I want to say like the day afterwards. And so I haven't been able to really go out there and do that. And so it's like I've been sitting here for a few days, like it wasn't too big a deal,
Yeah.
because like you're down, you're out, you're in bed. But then it's like when you've been in bed for a couple days and you're like, man, I feel like I need to do something and be productive in some
Yeah.
way, and that's when you start like beating yourself up because you're like, man, I should be like doing something rather than laying in bed. But then you remind yourself, I'm recuperating, and so I'm still on the
Yeah.
mend, and
It's
you know
like
you're
you have
having
this to-do list of like all these things that you want to do and you're all excited about it. And then you wake up one morning and go, never mind.
Yeah, and then for real, and then on top of it, it's like it kills your motivation, and so it's hard to sit here and not beat yourself up, especially when you
Oh,
you start finding these repeating cycles. It's like, man, it's like this keeps happening, and it's like you start questioning
yeah.
yourself. You're like, am I really supposed to be doing this? Is the path I'm supposed to be on? And then am
Oh,
I supposed
yeah.
to be doing this? And
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it, it does.
I,
It
I've
really
been there.
gets you, man. So what's crazy is like I've been in this self-doubt phase myself of like my own journey, my career, what I'm doing. Do I really want to keep doing this? Do I want to change? So it's like I've been sitting here in this battle. Well,
Yeah.
while I was sick, I was on TikTok and I was scrolling on there and I've tried to stay away from it for the most part, but I was like, I need to start like reprogramming my algorithm in it and kind of just get that flowing.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here watching. It was two mediums, and they were doing. One of them was doing mediumship, and the other one was doing tarot.
Ooh.
And the one doing tarot was like, "Oh, free, yes, no questions, da. And I never get in on those, but I was like, it's like I'm just gonna throw this out there. Just there's nobody else in there. No, they're trying to get people to conversate.
I'll
So
give
I
them
was,
engagement.
why not? I hate being live streaming and there's no engagement. It's the worst.
It's awkward because you're
It
sitting there
is.
going, "La, la, 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 la,
Like,
I'm just gonna talk about random stuff."
yeah, and I don't know if you guys are like connecting with it, not connecting with it. Like, ah. So I asked them, I'm like, should I continue down this career path? And I just threw the question into the comments, and sure enough, like they're like, yeah, they drew some cards on. Oh no, it was pendulums. She was doing the pendulum. And,
Ooh.
it was yes, no's pendulum, and so she was doing the pendulum, and she's like, "Yeah." She goes, "You should keep doing continuing on the career path you're on." And I was like, "Huh." I was like, "Well, I guess I really gotta, like, figure some shit out in my life because it's not flowing the way I want it to, but yet you're telling me I should still stay on it." And, like, I felt
Yeah.
like I should stay on it, and it was like, "Okay, it's just time to reevaluate." And so it's the self-talk.
Yeah.
It's like you're beating yourself up. You're downsizing everything in your life. You're finding reasons of why not or why you should walk away, and so you start instead of having that motivation, the inspiration, the positive talk with yourself, and be like, okay, like obviously it's not working out. So instead of piling the failures on top of you, you set them in front of you as stepping stones to get to where you want to be. It's that shift of mindset because we start getting real heavy with shit in life, right? It's
It's
like,
tricky. It's tricky. I can really relate to that because like the last 2 or 3 years with my health conditions has been a major battle. Like I am just a couple months out from literally being stuck in bed, unable to do anything for a year and a half or more because like it was just so bad. I mean, thankfully I'm on a new medication that seems to be helping, so it's like, but like especially when you have those like negative old tapes in your head, it's so easy for them to pop up. It's much easier for the negative ones to start playing than the positive ones because I'm sitting there, stuck in my bed trying to do whatever I can on my computer, and I'm going, how am I supposed to do this? I have all these lofty goals. This is great, but I had to walk away from my career because of my health. So how do I expect myself to be able to do this? And I have
Yeah.
to, like remind myself, okay, I'm doing this because it's something I can do even when I'm sick and
Yeah, and
still
it's
make a difference.
one step at a time too, right?
Mhm.
Like, you can only do as much as you can during the day, if you're not feeling
Yeah.
it, it's like being sick. It's like I was spending a lot of days doing nothing, but when I started feeling a little bit better, I was like, "Okay, I can at least do computer stuff, office stuff, the small things that don't take a lot of energy to do." And at
Yeah.
least that way I'm not doing nothing in
Mhm.
those moments, and we have to remind ourselves because both of us working from home, our own business, there's nobody to hold you accountable for what you do and don't do other
Yeah.
than the lack of like food, bills, money, the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there is more, holds you more accountable than your
Yeah.
job should, a boss.
And
So
motivation can be really like difficult, like especially like I have squirrel brain constantly. Like I'm like, oh, this looks fun, and I'll go down the rabbit hole on something and go, oh, wow, I was supposed to be doing this instead.
right. Yeah, I find myself doing that too. Like but I catch myself much sooner. I catch
Yeah,
myself a lot quicker now, and I find myself reverting and be like, oh, I'm in this scroll hole. Like I don't need to be in this because my thought process, like I had all these ideas, all this inspiration, all this motivation to do all of these things, and then I
yeah.
completely forgot everything that I was going to do because I'm over here watching slap boxing. Have you ever seen professional slap boxing?
No, but I've seen some chicks do what looked like slap boxing.
Okay. Like so during my downtime, I came across professional slap boxing, which is the best way to describe this is it is for those that are out of shape that want to be UFC fighters, is the best way to put this. It's you stand in front of like an arm wrestling table, which you've seen those, right? The professional arm wrestling.
I think so, yeah.
So it's like a tiny little table, but you're standing in front of it and you're literally taking turns slapping each other in the face as hard as you can with the goal to knock the other person out.
Okay, that was the
So
mental image that I had when you when you said slap boxing. So I'm on the right track. Why? Why?
all okay, every one of them I'm pretty sure does not have the endurance to be in a cage fight. So I'm pretty sure that's why, I'm guessing.
I'd be in the
Um
hospital after the first punch. Like I'm just gonna be honest. Like, mm-mm.
It's brutal. They end up one dude had his whole face swollen just
Mm.
from being slapped. I've seen I've seen worse injuries in that than in UFC. Like it's crazy. But one time I was watching one of them and they were standing there and they were boxing, they're slapping each other. And one of them reaches back and hits the guy so hard his eye exploded. Yeah, it was bad. I was like, "What in the
Like,
like?"
did okay.
Yeah.
That's a little nauseating, I have to admit. But the curiosity in me wants to know: did you like get to see
Well,
the eye
you saw the
explode? Like, how
side view, and then you saw the blood go
ah,
everywhere.
mm,
I was like, "Why? Why would you do this?"
mm, so,
Like, yeah, I don't know. It was
that's not
crazy.
worth it. that
So,
that is not worth it.
no, not at all. I didn't think it was either. So I thought that was an interesting sport that people were
Oh,
jumping into. Um, you know, it's crazy. I between that and then realizing that my algorithm was full of my YouTube algorithm, the kids had gotten a hold of it, and oh my god, the things they were subscribed to was like, I'm not interested in Roblox. I don't care what a family of 9 has to do to get ready for the morning for school. Like, I don't care about the latest makeup. Like, it, I probably spent a good hour unsubscribing on my
oh
YouTube
man,
today, and I was like, the kids need their own
they need their own
YouTube.
profile.
They do need their own profile. Uh, it's
Oh,
like the kids are funny, man. Just life itself. Like we just go through so many things, you know. And
yeah,
so we like for us, I started realizing too, it's like we're such a close family that a
mhm.
lot of us don't have like personal space or the privacy, and things like that just because you're just
Same. We've got a big family living in a very small house.
exactly. So it's like you learn to just make do with things, but over time you start realizing like the kids are getting older, like they're coming into
Ugh.
those ages of like they need their own personal algorithm essentially,
My
and it's
last
like
baby is going into the double digits this weekend, and she's like, "Mom, don't cry." And I'm like, "I can't promise you anything, but I will do my best."
not easy. Yeah,
It's not
my
that.
our youngest is like that preteen stage, so
Yeah. So
that's
let
yeah,
me
that's where we're at.
so let me ask you, because like the the big problem with like that negative self talk and the old tapes um that go running through our head. Two questions actually, because I was reading that a lot of times the that inner dialogue is picked up very young in childhood, like from the things that you hear around you or things that are said to you. So like how do you deal with beating yourself up, because that's the big problem with that negative self-talk, is that we just beat the crap out of ourselves. Because I go down those rabbit holes too. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do work today, and then 2 hours later I'm like, you were just supposed to check messages, get off Facebook. No more crochet videos, no more funny animal videos, you've blown it. And then like, where do you think that system of self-talk came for you? Like, what was the source?
I kind of like you just said, I recognize it in the moment. Like the moment I recognize it, I address it right then and there, and I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, you're right. Like basically, you call yourself out,
Yeah,
and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I am doing that, and I move on. I
yeah,
don't sit there and hold into it. I don't sit there and stew upon it or beat myself up. Like I wasted an hour. Or I wasted 2 hours doing that. I used to. I used to sit there and be like, you know what I could have done in 2 hours? I could have done a lot more and accomplished a lot more in my life and been a lot more ahead. Da da da. Like I used to do that, but
yeah,
now I recognize it and I'm like, damn, that was dumb. And I
yeah,
turn around and just like, all right, well, it's time for me to move forward because I can either sit here in it and beat myself up and keep badgering myself over it, or I can just do what it is that I needed to do initially and just get off my ass and get going and get doing it.
yeah,
And so that's how I have found it being a lot easier for me just in those moments to just not sit there in the emotion because it's kind of the same aspect as when you go when you do something like let's say our children or even as adults we do something that is not the smartest choice, right?
yeah.
And we can sit there and sit in that and beat ourselves up over not making a good choice in our life.
And it's so
Um,
easy to do.
it,
Like,
it is, and a lot of times when we go into that moment, we had a. I'm trying to like think back real quick because I had a client that was just going through this exact same thing, and we
yeah,
just had a session on this, and she basically made a not so wise decision a few years
Mhm.
ago, and it's put her on this path of like having to recoup a bunch of things in her own life and
Yeah.
hold herself accountable for stuff. But she's in this mode of like constantly beating herself up over making that decision and being in the position that she's in. And rather than sitting there harboring on it and just being stewing upon the whole thing, it's about recognizing, it's about realizing, okay, this is what I did, this is where I'm at, I'm going to move
Yeah.
forward with this. And so we do have a tendency to do that negative self-talk. uh and with the kids, when I find that because this is where I think a lot of it comes in, and even for me, was like my younger years, and it was about the discipline itself.
Yeah.
And when it comes to discipline, it's more about um educating them. It's more about recognizing the emotions, like with our kids. It's like, okay, yeah, this happened, you made this choice, but let's talk it through. Let's work
Yeah.
through it, understand it. And that way you're understanding the emotion part of it, the physical part of it, but also the consequences, or
Yeah.
even how your actions affected somebody else, why and how it affected them. So it's about walking through the process, I
Yeah.
have learned. And I feel like it was at a young age, and the way we approach our kids and the way we talk to them and the way that we don't sit there and continuously are harping on them because they did do wrong. It's like, yeah, okay, you did wrong, you recognize it, and then you can move forward from it. But you don't have to sit here in a state of uh pity, remorse, or anything of those natures for an extended period of time. Because what I've learned over time too is everybody processes differently.
Yeah.
So just because I did something wrong, and yeah, I feel bad about it, I acknowledged it, I apologized for it. But
Mhm.
just because I move forward from it from that moment doesn't mean I don't still feel bad about it. And it doesn't mean that I just doesn't mean anything to me and I'm not going to be better from it. It just means I recognized it in the moment and I'm moving forward from it now. The
Yeah.
problem is, I think society wants us to they have a certain expectation that we should
Yeah.
sit in something for a very extended period of time. Otherwise, you really don't show the remorse for what you did.
Well,
And
and there's people that are able to process things like more quickly. Like I have a lot of friends and some family members that something happens and they're like ready to talk about it right then and there. Whereas I'm the kind of person where I'm like, I can't do this right now. I need to think about it first. I need to process about it first. I need
yeah,
to get to a place where I understand what my reaction to this is, and then I can talk about it. And that's something that I've had to learn to voice is like I need a couple of days to,
yeah,
go through it, and then we can come back and have the conversation when I've got my mind straight. Cuz
right. Because how many times have you tried to go straight into that conversation, and then after the conversation, and when you had time to sit and think and process, you're like, man, I should have said this, this, and this, or I should have said it this way because it would have made more sense of what I was trying to get to.
oh, constantly.
But if
Constantly. And like that that self-talk, the negative self-talk that becomes that like really severe inner critic that just like, you know, points out everything you did wrong and everything that you screwed up, like I feel it has a lot to do with like self-esteem. And it
yeah,
started pretty early. Like for me, I had a lot of voices telling me, like you're too loud, you're too much, you're over dramatic, you're being a drama queen, you're too sensitive, you're too, and oh, you'd look so much prettier if you lost some weight. And I'm like, thanks. And and I catch myself even now, like when I like, if I do get lost down that rabbit hole and I'd intended to do something else with the time, or I attempt a conversation, and sometimes communication is hard for me because I have a lot that I want to say, but I also have a lot of like cognitive issues from my illness that like prevent me from getting the words out because there's like this wall there, or like I know what I want to say but I can't like physically articulate it. I'll start stuttering and tripping over my words, and then I get frustrated.
Yeah.
Um and it's really easy for, you know, that inner critic to go, well, just suck it up. You know how to do this, just suck it up. Like, and I can totally relate to like ruminating and being stuck on like past decisions, because like I've had to make some really awful, painful decisions, both for like my mental health and my emotional health and my physical health. I've had to walk away and give up on a lot. And so like that'll come up when I'm feeling insecure and being like, was it the right choice? Did I do this? And I have to like stop myself and go, okay, I made the choice that I thought was best at the time, and I'm sticking with it because it was the best choice at the time.
Yeah, and there's a difference between, like, sucking it up and acknowledging it and moving, away from it
Yeah.
rather quickly, right? It can seem the same. It can seem because it happens so fast. It can feel like you're just pushing it down.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have this awareness in yourself, and like I think I agree with you, the confidence. If you don't have the confidence in yourself, then you're gonna feel like you're just pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down.
Yeah.
But if you're confident enough in yourself, you recognize it, and you just recognize it in the moment, you acknowledge it, and then you move forward with it. I read this thing which I thought was very interesting, and it was saying that our perspective and view on just situations and circumstances altogether, the we base everything off of what we know, right?
Yeah.
So the only things that we know are our experiences from the past
Mhm.
and what we're currently going through in the moment.
Yeah.
So everything that we base our decisions on, our actions on, our choices on, or even our self-talk is based off of our past experiences. And so when we sit there and hyper focus on all the bad things that have happened, the negative stuff we've gone through, the things that haven't worked out for us, then we come to this space of we're basing all of it off of that negativity of it rather
Mhm.
than looking at the positive part and not letting that lower emotion or vibration kind of rise above everything
Yeah.
and take over, which is where all that negative self-talk is at. And so when you start reprogramming yourself, I have discovered that you can feel very uh wish-washy, I guess might be a good way to say it.
It's uncomfortable because it's like not familiar. You get so used to that negative rhetoric and you've believed it for so long that like you try to tell yourself something positive, or somebody else tries to tell you something positive, and automatically your brain is like, mm-mm,
You feel
that
fake.
that's not right. Like
Yeah.
my husband will look at me and go, "You're beautiful," and I'm like, "Are you sure?" Like, you know.
And it's just taking the compliment. It may
Yeah, it can be
that's
really awkward, and then I'm sitting there going, "He's my husband. I know he thinks I'm beautiful. Like, why am I even questioning him? This is stupid." Like,
like, you're supposed to say that because 'cause you're my husband.
yeah,
Like, yeah, and I think that's where we get, right? Because and it depends if that negative self-talk comes from, like, like your childhood,
yeah,
that can have a huge factor on that because the same person that's telling you, like your parents, that's telling you that you're awesome, that you're amazing, and in the next breath are tearing you down because, like, your weight or, you're not doing your hair right or whatever it is,
yeah,
you're learning that, that it's okay for people close to you to treat you that way, but also you start learning that, well, maybe they're just saying that because they have to say that. Like you're my parents, so you have to say that because your
mhm,
actions and your words don't show otherwise. They actually don't show me that you really mean that because if you really thought I was smart, you would allow me to try to do more things in my life. You would give me more rope to actually try things with the potential of failure but
Yeah.
you don't think I'm smart because you're constantly stepping in. And when things get difficult, you just take over and you don't either let me just try or, just step in to help, but it's the takeover factor,
Yeah.
so
And I can't even count the amount of times that I had people in various areas of my life, family, friends, school, work, like those voices that tell me you can't do this, you're not capable, you're not this, you're not that, you're like not going to be able to take care of yourself, like all of these things, and you hear it so often for so long that it like it becomes your reality, like you believe it.
yeah,
Okay, I can't do this, I'm not capable, I'm not smart, I'm not like, and then like you get so used to acknowledging the negative evidence that like looking for that positive evidence isn't even a thought in your
yeah.
brain, and it like that programming is so deeply ingrained that it can be like difficult to start rooting it out and rewriting it.
Yeah. And you have to come into this space of trusting yourself
Hmm.
and not letting others opinions, words or anything else really influence your view, your perspective, yourself, or
Yeah.
even making you biased towards yourself, right? Like an example, like when I was younger, I'd always been kind of a big guy, and so I've always had a gut on me. Like it's, but back in the day, I got made fun of it when I was in high school. My brothers were skinnier; they made fun of me,
Yeah.
but I was always really strong on top of it too. You know how some big guys can be, like they're pretty damn strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I myself was going through that when I was a kid. So I'd always want to buy clothes that were bigger, like too big on me, just to hide it
Baggy,
all.
hide
Ye-
hide behind
Yeah.
the fabric. Yeah.
And so it's like I'm doing that, but then like when we'd go clothes shopping, my mom would get mad because I'm always wanting to buy these big clothes. And then
Hmm.
she's like, "You're not big," like acting like I'm like muscular, right?
Yeah.
And it was like that's not even the case. Like I don't want 2X clothes because I have all these muscles. Because if that was the case, I would want extra small clothes so I can fit in a tight t-shirt like
Yeah.
I'm in college. Like that's what I'd want,
Yeah, I
and
want the
so
loose fitting jeans with the baggy t-shirt, all in black, because black is slimming, but it also doesn't draw attention. If I wear bright
right?
colors, people are going to look at me. So we're going to go
It's like I
with the
want
black
this,
outfit, no matter how many times they tell me that I'm a weirdo goth, like,
right?
no.
So like as a kid, like I'm in this torn space of like I'm trying to like make myself feel comfortable, but yet you think that I have this inflated ego about myself. And well, I have this inflated ego because the whole rest of the world is like judging me for being fat, and I'm
Yeah.
scared. Like I don't want to be fat. Being fat equals A, B, and C, and all this other shit. And so it's like there's that negative self-talk comes in, and so at a young age you have this negative self-talk about back and forth. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel confident, but then the moment somebody says something, it tears all of your confidence away, and you're like, well, maybe they're right, maybe I am this, maybe I am that, and then you start just having that. Well, for me, it was as I got older and I with the
Hmm.
kids and seeing the kids kind of, going into the stages of life and like especially puberty where the self-doubt comes in.
Yeah.
You start going
Oh,
yeah, you
that
start going through
that
that.
hormonal overdrive makes it so much harder.
It does. It really does. And so it's like I start seeing that in them and it's like, "Oh, it's like, okay, I get it." And so it's about building the confidence because I want you to be confident in who you are. Like I don't want you to rely on your looks. Yeah, you're good
Yeah.
looking, but I don't want you to rely on just that. It's like I want you to feel confident that you look good. I want you to feel confident that you're smart. So it's about helping them build that within themselves. Because for me,
Yeah.
it wasn't until God, I want to say it was I was pushing 40 when I finally was able to build enough self-esteem in me. And this was even after being a cop, being in management, and being in
Yeah.
management really helped in dressing the part and all that stuff. Really helped me build my confidence and being part of the transition of like this mom and pop company into a $1 billion company and all of that, like that helped me a lot recognize myself. But even during all of that, I had a boss that was constantly tearing everybody down. So even during those times, I was still battling that back and forth of just insecurity, being unsure of
Yeah.
myself. So I had to just reteach all of that to myself. And when I got to the point where I stopped letting others influence my feelings, my thoughts, my choices, my perspective, as when I finally started um, finding my own voice and my own
Yeah.
confidence. But the one thing that I think that I had the hardest time with was with my parents.
Mm.
And that was, I think, the hardest part. My parents and my family, my brothers, and not letting their negativity or negative comments um, really affect my emotional being, or getting upset or angry or feeling like
Yeah.
I, I have to justify myself. I have to prove myself. I have to stand up for myself, rather than just letting the talk happen and then just being like, "All right, cool. That's your opinion. I don't even have to answer. I don't have to respond. I'm just gonna literally walk away from this because this serves me no good." And I
Yeah.
realize this is just gonna piss me off, and I'm not gonna be able to respond in a way that we're both gonna feel respected in the end.
Yeah.
And I know that for me in the past, blowing up was one thing, right? And because you get to that point where you're just like, I got courage now. Like I'm mad, so you're about to get it all. But then at the end of
Yeah.
it, it's like you feel embarrassed, you feel like you disrespected yourself, and so you go through all these emotions and you start realizing like, damn, like this is not who I am or who I really want to be
Yeah.
in these moments. And so yeah, I've learned just that, especially like I said, going to that puberty stage of everything. And I want to say it's all stages of life. Like when you start crawling, when you start walking, it's when you start failing at things
Yeah. Well,
in
and it's
in
that
reality.
perception of failure as like a negative thing.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's not. It really isn't, and like I was saying earlier about the stepping stones, I saw a picture of it was 2 pictures, and one guy had there were books. They looked like books, but they were on top of him, and they said failure, 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 and it was just crushing him down. But the
Yeah.
other guy he was putting them in front of him as he was building stairs with his failures.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I really hit with that. I was like, that makes absolute sense, because if you don't climb from your failures, then you're gonna be sitting in this state of depression, the state of
Yeah.
anxiety. And then the self-talk comes in. Then you
Mhm.
start beating yourself up because it's been like this long since I've done this. It's been this long since I've done that. Like I have not showing up for me.
Yeah.
It's like when I start don't I'm not getting the growth that I want, whether it's on social media, during the lives, just the growth I'm looking for.
Yeah.
When I'm not getting it, I'm sitting there. There was I would I was bad about this. I would sit there and I'd be on TikTok and I'd be like, well, there's other people that are doing the same thing that I do, and they're live and they have 3 times as many people in the room. They're getting bookings, they're doing this, they're getting that. And it's like I'm looking at them and I'm like, I've been doing this longer than they have. Like I have put all this action into it. I know I'm really good. I'm not saying I'm better than they are, but I
Yeah.
know I'm really good at what I do. And it's like, but why aren't I getting the same traction that they are? Why aren't I going down this path? Why don't I have this? And it's
The grass isn't
because
always greener.
it's not. But I also wasn't showing up,
Yeah.
because if I think about it, like they were going live streaming every day
Yeah.
for several hours a day, and I haven't been. And so it's like, "Oh, okay, well, it's because 'cause I'm not showing up for me." And it's like when it was working, when I was growing, when everything was excelling, oh, yeah, I was showing up 4 or 5 days a week. I was live streaming, I was doing this, I was doing that, but I was consistently being there and doing those things for myself, and
Yeah.
I felt good. I was talking positive about myself. I didn't have the self-doubt. And so I keep referring back, like, why did this work? Why did this work? Why isn't this working? And all in all, it's because of, first of all, how I talked to myself, how I
Yeah.
motivated myself, what I was motivating myself with, because that's huge, which is inside your algorithm,
Yeah.
and so all of those factors come into play, and you're like, well, this is exactly why. Now, the truth is, it's on you to sit there and make that change and that shift, and nobody else at that point.
Yeah. I think um I think for me, like, the biggest hurdle was learning how to not buy into it, allowing myself to not believe all of the, information that I was given about myself. Cause like, and, and in order to like break through and become comfortable with my emotions, I had to be like, you're not over emotional, you're not sensitive, you're not crazy, you just feel deeply. And then but then I'd have moments where I'd really struggle and, start beating up on myself again. And the the key was first learning to recognize when I was talking to myself negatively. And it took me a while to like pick up on that, like learning to recognize it so I could put a stop to it and go, no, 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 hold on a minute, like this isn't true. There is no evidence that supports this. And then I think one of the things that really got my attention was recognizing that I was beating myself up so much that my kids were starting to beat themselves up because like I'd screw up on something or something wouldn't go my way, or I'd do something where I was just generally frustrated with myself for that same like consistency and showing up for myself, because it's hard when that's not your norm and when it's not something that you're comfortable with, and you're having to learn how to be assertive and show up for yourself and build that trust like in yourself. And I hear, my words coming out of my kid's mouth. I'm stupid. I can't do this. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Where did you hear that? And then I went, oh
I
yeah, I
learned it by
say
watching
that to
you.
myself a lot. Yeah. So, now it's this process of, okay, this is how we feel right now. It's normal to
Right?
feel that way when you mess up, when you stumble, but it's not true. And the truth is, and here's the evidence that supports this, and so it was a process of teaching them how to reframe too, so that as I was learning how to reframe, it being like, okay, it felt like this was a stupid thing to do, but ABC, and people make mistakes. And so, how are we going to move on from this? Okay, you got one bad grade. You got in one fight with your friend at school. It doesn't mean you're a horrible person. It doesn't mean you're a bad student. It doesn't mean, it was one bad day. And
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of improvement. Like, it still comes out, and even I, like, I'll do something, go, well, that was stupid, no, I can't say that about myself anymore.
I find myself doing that too, but I don't do it in a bad way anymore, right? And it was like, well, that was dumb. And then the kids be like, well, what? And I'm like, well, I did this, this, and this. They'd look at me, it's like most times they'd be like, that's okay, it'll be all right. Or every now and then
Yeah.
they'll be like, yeah, that was dumb. And it's like, I can
Yeah.
acknowledge it,
It's more like sarcastic now. Like, I'll
Yeah.
I'll I'll do something, I'll go, well, good job, Megan.
One thing I have learned is if you like reframe the wordage that's used, that verbiage matters. And instead of like, because if I was really bad about using cuss words, and so I would
Yeah.
throw cuss words into things, and it kind of makes things worse. And it makes things enhanced a little bit, and it pulls people away. But if you use just different stuff, like, it's like something goes wrong, you're like, oh, cheese and crackers,
Yeah.
things like that, then it doesn't seem as harsh.
My oldest goes, what the fish? I had I had to exnay. I'll use a few choice words when it's just me by myself. But like
Yeah.
when my youngest boy was like, a year and a half, like almost 2, I think, we had this moment, and it was one of the first realizations where I went, "Uh-oh, he is really paying attention to what I say and what I do," because I'd like stub my toe or I'd drop something. If you know me, the day has not officially started until I've injured myself in some way. Either I bump into something or I drop something on my foot or I knock my head against the chandelier because I'm so freaking tall. And so I'd stub my toe or something would happen and I'd go, "Ow, damn it," you know? And then we're at my dad's house for Christmas, and my sister was serving her mission in central South America, and so she zoomed home with us that day, and my baby is sitting in my brother's lap, and they're just playing, while the family's talking with my sister and catching up with what she's doing on her mission, and all of a sudden you hear Liam go, "Damn it!" And I kid you not, both rooms turned to look at me, like my entire family and the host family on the other end of the Zoom. And I was like, "My bad, I'll work on that." Like, like it was even in context too. I was like, "Oh no."
Oh, he figured it out. No.
Yeah, so I mean, they
Dang.
they really do pay attention. So when like we're beating up on ourselves, all it does is teach them to beat up on
Yeah.
themselves.
It's true, because they watch and they absorb and they learn, because they don't know. They
Mm-mm.
really don't know how to handle things, and they learn from us on how to handle stuff.
They look to
And
us for so many cues on a daily
yeah,
basis.
and it's a reaction,
Hmm.
right? Because you're reacting to something, and then so when you start seeing your kids reacting in that way, you're like, oh, like that's not good. And it's like, since I've been around my parents a lot more, like I've seen where my dad, like, things don't go well for him, and like he gets. It's funny because he'll get mad and he'll be like, my gods are just effing with me, and just like
It
like
feels that way sometimes. I,
so, so
I will confess there have been times where I've been sitting in my yard or I've been sitting in my room and I look up at the ceiling and I'm like, "What the heck, Dad? Like really?"
It's like, I've done everything you've asked of me, and now, like, what more?
Everybody has those moments. Yeah.
So it's like I've been seeing that, and I'm like, oh, that's where I learned it. And being in an unhealed state for so long, like in my younger years, uh, I I was real bad when it came to the negative self-talk, when it came to
Yeah.
just being angry, when it came to like reacting to things in an unhealthy way. Like it was huge in my life and I didn't know any different. And unfortunately, the older kids, because my oldest is 25. So like
Yeah.
my older kids, they did not get the best version of me. Quite frankly, I feel like they got the worst version of me. And I can
Yeah.
admit that now. Um, and and then but thankfully they all three of them have turned out the actual opposite of what I did. So I'm
Awesome.
very thankful for that. Um,
Yeah.
and with the three that are still at home, um, it's different. I have seen where like I was a huge impact on a lot of that. And
Yeah.
so it was like, man, I really got to change this. And I've been even now consciously every day, I'm just very aware of like the things I'm doing, my energy that I'm putting out. And like for me, when I think I have
Yeah.
that like resting bitch face, they say, because car man, our youngest, she'll come up to me and she'll be like, "Are you mad?" I'm like, "No, I'm just thinking." "Oh, you look mad." And I'm like, "I'm not mad, I swear." But
Yeah. But she's
even
watching. She's paying attention to your body language. Yeah.
she is. And so I'm like constantly having to reassure myself. And I'm not a person that just runs around with a smile on my face all the time. But I'm learning to just like have a smile on my face and be okay with it and not feel fake with it and just being like, it's okay to be happy for no freaking reason.
Yeah. I mean, if there's nothing to be unhappy about, why not just be in the
Yeah.
moment and be happy?
Exactly, and if it feels sometimes it feels wrong, and especially if you're used to beating yourself up, it just it does. It feels
Yeah.
Yeah, like the inner child in you just like it feels like it shouldn't be happy, or like why should we be happy if like my environment doesn't reflecting like parties and unicorns and rainbows, like why should I be in a state of joy right now? And
Yeah.
so, we're learning over time, especially if you don't have it when you're younger. If you have it from the beginning, that's great, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't, you're learning how to just kind of being there for you, showing up for you, because the truth and the reality of it is you cannot be there unless you are literally showing up for yourself.
Yeah.
And that is the most important thing of everything, is to be gentle on yourself, show up for yourself, be consistent with what you want. And if you find something that you're very passionate about, put drive into it, and
Yeah.
just know you're gonna fail. And it may not fail in all of it, but there's a chance that you're gonna fail in parts of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that like one of the keys to like realize is that it doesn't matter how awesome a support system you have, if you don't show up for yourself and find ways to like be there for you, then your support system really doesn't matter because they can't fix what's going on inside. And I know that when I first started trying to address that inner critic with my therapist, because that's been a big one, is recognizing that it's a protective function. Like it's a way of protecting yourself from disappointment, from failure, from loss. It like because if you don't put yourself out there, you don't have anything to lose. There's nothing to hurt over. But then you miss out on so much. And so it was this process of recognizing when the thoughts were going on, acknowledging, that okay, this is my inner critic and my internal dialogue trying to protect me from this and this. And like even though I on an intellectual level know that these things are not true about myself, it's that little girl inside who is still in so much pain and still believes all of those old tapes and is desperately trying to protect herself from the things that I'm putting myself out there and taking a chance and taking a risk with, and then trying to turn the conversation around and reassure her that it's okay. Even if we mess up, I've got this. Like
Yeah.
what happened in the past is not going to happen anymore because we're doing things differently now and I'm here for you.
Yeah, and I found myself apologizing a lot before I
I
got to this
still
point.
do. I still
I
do. It's so bad. Like something will happen. I'll go, "Oh, I'm sorry," and my husband's like, "What are you apologizing for? It doesn't have anything to do with you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're apologizing for apologizing. Stop it."
It's so bad. Or it's like, even if you just, like, get into somebody's way for a second, or even if you weren't in their way, it's just you do. You sit there and apologize for everything, and it's actually unhealthy to
Yeah,
do
it's
that.
so ingrained that it comes out of my mouth before I even think about it, and so I find myself like biting my lip or like putting my mouth over it so that I don't say anything. Like just stay quiet.
Yeah.
If you don't speak at all, you won't apologize for something that's not yours to apologize for.
And part of it comes into the fact that, like, you just past relationships, past experiences, like, you were expected to apologize for everything. You were
Yeah.
expected to apologize for other people's mistakes,
Hmm.
and so you're just ingrained and trained. You trained yourself to do that as a survival mechanism,
Yeah. No.
you know?
Absolutely.
And so because in reality, it's like, well, if I apologize and I acknowledge it, then it'll go away,
Hmm.
and in the past it has, and but to me, that defeats the purpose of an apology.
Hmm.
Like, it's not even sincere at that point,
Yeah.
and so, and in some ways, it's negative self-talk because you're doubting yourself. If you're just going to apologize over everything, then people, are going to take advantage of you. They're going to see
Yeah.
you as weak and vulnerable. And I'm not saying don't apologize, but only apologize where it's necessary and needed. You don't have to
Yeah.
apologize for every little thing because we're human. We make mistakes, but we should be
Yeah.
really apologizing if it has a major impact on somebody and it really affected them. And you're truly like, damn, like, I'm sorry about that. I did not mean to do
Yeah.
that. Then absolutely. But if it's just like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, like you're just doing it out of that, like, yeesh, then that awkwardness, then learning to be okay with awkwardness
Yeah.
is so important, because if you're okay with that awkwardness, just kind of like being okay with an awkward silence,
Yeah.
being okay with that gives you and the room a moment to absorb what's happening, what's going on, what you're feeling. And there's a lot more clarity in
Yeah.
the end with it, than if you were to just kind of stay in that survival mode of just, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, but go into
Mhm.
like that thriving mode of like, damn, this sucks because we're in this together,
Yeah.
you know? And that's what we tend to forget, is we're in shit together.
And I've learned for me that like part of it is a tendency to over empathize on my part, because I've gone through so much trauma and abuse that I there's a part of me that tries to protect others from the same
Mhm.
thing. So it's that unconscious mindset of, if I take responsibility for it and I take it on myself, they don't have to hurt the same way that I've been hurt.
Yeah, I know how it feels, so I'll take it. I
Yeah.
can handle it, so I'll take that. You're absolutely
Mhm.
right, 100% right on that. It makes a huge difference, when we could start recognizing that and seeing that, and when we start realizing, like, I don't actually have to take accountability for everybody,
Yeah.
because it's okay for others to take accountability, because I also know that I'm not gonna come down on them or my partner or my kids in the way that it came down on me. It's
Yeah.
more of an understanding. It's more of a teaching. It's more of a learning. It's more of a companionship. It's more of those positive aspects of it,
Yeah.
rather than it is. I don't have to keep you safe and protected like I used to, because I'm not in those past situations any longer.
Yeah, and my husband is wonderful because he'll recognize when my anxiety's starting to climb up, or when I'm going into that like kind of mental shutdown disassociative state because I'm overwhelmed. And he did it for me just the other day, because I was having a really hard conversation. And he came up to me and he's like, "You're safe. Our home is safe. Be here with me now. Don't be back there. Be here with me." And I'm like, "Okay." you know and then
Yeah.
I think one of the hardest exercises that I was given was mirror work. It works wonders, but it is so awkward and uncomfortable at first to look at yourself in the mirror every day and find one good thing to say about yourself. And I'll also leave like sticky notes and note cards up with like positive reminders or positive like statements, or I'll write it on my mirror with like a dry erase marker. And when you do those
Yeah.
kinds of things, it helps undo that programming, because you may not be consciously telling yourself that, but every time you read it, like it stores itself away.
Yeah, it's like reassuring yourself,
Mhm.
in those moments, especially because when you're consciously working on all those things about yourself, then you are aware of it, right?
Yeah.
But it's when life really starts getting busy and you start getting back into the swing of life, whether it's you're working
Yeah.
all the time or the kids, you got school, got events, got this, got that, you start losing sight of how wonderful you are,
Yeah.
and you just kind of start focusing on everybody else around you. And then when something happens, or something goes down,
Yeah.
that's when it hits you, and then you start beating yourself up. You're like, am I really that great? Like, this didn't go that well. Like, am I really the person I think I am, or I feel that I should be?
Yeah.
So it starts hitting you. So if you are leaving these constant reminders for yourself, it's like, I am great, you are smart, you are successful, you are this, you're doing this, and it's not always just about the positive reassurances, but you can, even in this point, like, I am I'm an amazing mentor, or
Yeah.
this put those certain uh, you hate to say labels because people have turned labels into such a negative thing, but
Yeah.
you can put this label on it because if you're whether you're an actor, a singer, comedian, whatever it is, and if that's what you're aspiring to be, you can still be new at it. You could still be
Yeah.
not that great at it, but you know what? You can still tell yourself you are great at it. You are amazing at it. Because the truth is like, yeah, you might be absolutely amazing at it at the level you are. If you're at an introductory level, you're not going to be like to the point where somebody that's been doing it for 10, 20 years with
Yeah.
that same confidence, same material that they're doing, right?
And it
So
it doesn't even have to be super complicated. Like, and when you're first getting started on trying to like rewrite those old tracks in your mind, it really shouldn't be complicated. It shouldn't is a no word, but it, you know,
shouldn't.
you want to make it easy, as easy as possible for yourself. So even like just 2-word statements, like I'll have a sticky note or a note or something around that says I'm safe, I'm intelligent, I'm capable, I'm creative. Like just those 2-word statements, like they start to make a difference. And like
They
I'd be
do.
looking in the mirror trying to find something nice to say about myself, and I'd be like, "You know what? I've always liked my eyes. I have really cool eyes." And it feels silly, but it feels ridiculously silly. And it's uncomfortable when you're standing there staring at yourself going, "Okay, something positive, something positive.
Yeah,
You know, like, but
right? And
stick with it because it does start to make a change.
it does. And if you can even turn the positive towards those things that you view as flaws about
Mhm.
yourself, and you can start talking positively about those things, then you really start uncovering a lot of things about yourself in a
Yeah.
positive way. And when others attack you, because it's going to happen, it's life. People can be mean, you
Life's
know.
not perfect. People aren't perfect. It's just
Exactly, and they're
everybody's at their own place of growth. And
yeah,
like,
and you piss the right person off, they're gonna say some mean things about you. And if you are in yourself enough to trust yourself enough, your own confidence, then those things aren't gonna hit you and tear you apart. They're just gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm fat, cool. See you later." Like, whatever, And so it's like don't let those things fester
yeah,
like you used to. Because I was real bad about that. I would just let things like sit on me and sit and sit, and it would just build and build, and all of a sudden, like that's who you were was everything everybody was saying.
it was like it played on
Rather than just
repeat
being in
for
your own
just
state of self confidence, and being able to talk. Like again, have that healthy talk with yourself about all the walks of life that you're going
yeah,
through. And I personally find that when I do that, I have a much better relationship with myself.
yeah,
I accomplish a lot more things in my day to day. I have a way better connection with Sherry and with the kids. I find myself reaching out to others that I haven't talked to in a while and being able to have conversations with them. I
yeah,
don't feel that I'm trying to have to prove myself to everyone that I am this or I am successful or I am making it, or you just start realizing like I'm living life and I'm just doing my best. I'm trying to do better and I'm taking each day with stride and I'm trying to find the joy in everything. Even
yeah,
in the shittiest of moments, I'm still doing my best to find the joy in all those little crevices. And sometimes it's not easy to do. And sometimes you just need a day of downtime to just do nothing and to not even worry about it and to just not show up, you know?
yeah. I think through the process, I've definitely learned how to be how to take that compassion and empathy that is so easy for me to give to other people and turn it around and start giving it back to myself. Like, uh I'll have a day where I'm down and I'm like, okay, I've got this really important something that I have to do. and I have to have the energy for it. So I've got to stay down and do nothing and let my body rest so that I am capable of this. And instead of like, giving myself the usual beat yourself up rhetoric of, well, you could be doing this and you could be doing that, I'm like, it's okay for me to take this time and just relax and watch movies and play video games with my kids,
Yeah.
because I'm letting my body do what it needs to in order to function later.
Yeah, and during that time, though, you're making use of it, right? You're spending time
Mhm.
with the kids, you're doing things that you're able to do, and
Yeah.
you're not sitting there distracting yourself, though.
Yeah,
Because
no, it I'm able to be more present.
yeah, absolutely, and I found myself doing that too, and I found myself going down the damn scroll holes so much, uh,
Yeah.
and I don't sleep well at night. Uh I just don't, and I usually everybody's out cold. I'm up till 1, 2 in the morning, sometimes 3 in the morning. I can't sleep.
I'm a night
But
owl too.
I I unfortunately would fuel myself with video games and social media to
Mhm.
distract myself because I can't sleep.
Yeah.
Well, I finally had this conversation with myself and was like, if you're just sitting here doing nothing, essentially, which, video games are fun. Social media can be, it can be
I
entertaining, it can be
I love
educational,
video games.
you
It's
know?
like it's like living a book. Like, especially because I like
Yeah,
RPGs, like, those are my favorites, and I get really immersed in an RPG, and it's like, I am that character, man.
it's fun. The only problem I ran into though is I haven't been getting the forward movement that I want, right?
Yeah.
And so I sit there, I finally told myself, it was like, instead of sitting here late at night and distracting yourself, why aren't you doing research on the
Yeah.
things that you do want? Why aren't you it's like because I've talked about doing stand-up comedy before, and I've been trying to like come into the content, create the jokes, and just the stage presence and all of that.
Yeah.
And so instead of um, actually looking into it more, because I'm like kind of like a jack of all trades. I've learned with myself. I have never given myself the opportunity to fully invest into something I'm doing. I've gone to learn the surface level of it, and once I learned it, I was like, okay, I'm done with it. Like instead of actually applying myself more into it and really applying everything about me into it to make it work, I'll just be like, "Oh, okay, well, that was cool, that was fun. I'm done with it." Well, I had this realization of like, "Oh, I need to actually, like, put a hell of a lot more work into this." And
Yeah.
so for something like that, I'm like, "Well, why aren't I doing what those who have very much succeeded have done? Research. Why aren't I researching stage presence? Why aren't I researching how to write jokes? Why aren't I researching how to present myself on even on social media? Because I started realizing, especially during like doing the podcast, going live, my two biggest downfalls is one is the introduction. I am so horrible about introductions, and I've known that because I'm horrible about introducing people when they meet other people. So my initial start to it is bad. So I'm been lately just running things through my head, like how do we want to start the podcast? How do I want to start my live streams? Like how do I want to introduce all of that? And so that's the first one. The second one is the outro. Like, how do you just like, okay, we're going into the closing, we're saying goodbye, and then we're off. So
Yeah.
like these are the things that like I'm passionate about, like doing the podcast. I'm passionate about mediumship. I'm passionate about, self-growth and the live streaming and the things that I'm actually passionate about and I want to grow with and doing stand-up. But I haven't been applying myself 100%. Reality, 200% into all of it, but I've been giving, like, 50%. I don't even wanna say 75. I'm gonna say maybe 50% I've been giving myself, and so it's those moments that we're like that we recognize it, and we're like, "Damn," like, "Okay, I need to do more. I need to put more effort in, more action in," and I realized my energy is like I got to be aware of it and how it works, but I need to show up a lot more and to learn a lot more and to understand like this is what I want. then this is what I have to do. And I have to push this to make sure that I am giving myself every opportunity to succeed because nobody's doing it for me. So I literally have to do all of this research myself. I have to learn it. I have to, and it's not only about that, but you have to apply it into your own life as
Yeah, no,
well. You
that's
know?
critical. Like you can learn all you want to, but if you don't
Yeah.
put it into practice, like
Like sitting in
you're
front of
not
the
benefiting. Yeah.
like sitting in front of the mirror and rehearsing it to yourself. I'm like,
Yeah.
does this sound good? Is this what I want? Do I sound confident saying this? Because that's the
Yeah.
thing. If you don't believe yourself, then who else is gonna believe you?
Well, and you don't have to do it all at once either. Like you have a goal that you want to get to, and most goals will fall through because there's not a a plan for it. It's just like, okay, I want to get to this point, and it's an unrealistic expectation that you're just going to say, okay, I want to improve here, and
Yeah.
fairy godmother's going to come wave her magic wand. No. So it's like it's figuring out where you want to be and then breaking it down into those baby steps and then giving yourself encouragement for those baby steps where you're stepping out of that comfort zone and pushing yourself out of that place where you're just going to sit because you're comfortable there and not do anything. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, like, that inner child, like when I'm pushing myself, that inner girl is just like, are you sure this is kind of crazy, I don't agree with this, and but it's getting easier to feel that that part of myself is starting to trust me because I am making those pushes and I am making those efforts, and then really talking to
Yeah.
myself about it with that compassion, with that understanding, contradicting the negative old tapes and not beating myself up. And then also, like, recognizing and understanding that I'm teaching my kids to do this too, just by doing it for myself. And that's an important factor
Yeah.
too.
Oh, absolutely. And like our inner child in those moments, it's wouldn't you rather just, play Forza where you own 10 houses and 273 cars and drive as fast as you want? Wouldn't you rather do that than go do something responsible?
Of
It's
course
like
I would, but that's not going to pay the bills.
so it's like we got responsibilities first, buddy. We gotta go do this before we can
Uh-huh.
do that.
Yeah.
So I've been like for myself, I've been trying very hard to do adult responsible things before I allow myself any playtime.
Yeah.
Unless I'm really just having one of those days where, like, I just don't feel motivated for not even to cook a meal, like, not even to take a shower. In
Yeah.
those days, I'm like, "Yeah, I might just sit here and veg out for a few hours, play games, watch a movie." But then I have to be like, "Okay, I gotta get up and go do something." Like, I'm gonna go take a shower, cleanse myself off, like, see where the day
Yeah.
takes me. If it takes me somewhere, great. If it doesn't, if it doesn't, at least I still got up and did something, you know?
Yeah, like I have to gauge myself in the morning and decide, okay, I don't know if everybody's heard about spoon theory, but if you haven't, go look it up because it's really awesome. But I have to get up in the morning and go, okay, how many spoons do I have to have? How many spoons do I have for the day? What are my priorities that I absolutely want to get done? And I'll put as much energy as I have available. And even if I only make like a teeny tiny little bit of progress, okay, cool. I made progress. My body's done. So I'm going to be done for today, and tomorrow's another day.
Yeah, exactly, and that's less stuff that you have to do later because you've already done it. As long as you can do something, even if it's just one thing, that's still one step closer to being where you wanna be.
Hmm.
It's we have to hold ourselves accountable. Maybe you don't like the job that you're in, maybe you don't like the environment that you're in, but you look at it and you're like, "Well, how can I change this? I'm so far behind. I'm so far down." Like, it
Yeah.
just seems impossible to get there. Well, if you sit there and just keep telling yourself that, but don't have any action behind it, you're never gonna get there. But even if
Yeah.
you're just putting a little bit in, that little bit does make every difference because when it comes time to you having the ability and the energy to do more, then you will be able to capitalize off of it in a much bigger way because the little things are already taken care of, and you're already showing up for yourself by doing those little things, right? So it's about
Yeah.
challenging ourselves.
Well, and those baby steps seem so small in the moment, so small and insignificant. But then when you look backwards and realize just how many of those steps you've taken, you realize, okay, I've made more progress than I thought.
Absolutely. Because the little things, right? We've all seen this in life.
They build
Those
up.
they do build up, but when they're happening in the moment, you don't recognize it because it's little, and so
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't seem like much, which is like what the shadow work is and the
Yeah.
internal work. Like you don't see it, you don't recognize it because it's little change after little change after little change. But when you reflect back on, 6 months, 12 months, and you're like, wow, like, I'm actually a lot further ahead than I realize or even give myself credit for.
Yeah. Like I'm way farther today than I was even 6 months ago.
Oh, for sure. Same here. Even though it doesn't might not appear so on the surface of everything, I still know that I am leaps and bounds ahead. And just because the outside is not currently reflecting everything on the inside at this moment, it's just because all of the changes haven't come to fruition yet.
Yeah.
And that's just because I'm still putting in action to
Mm-hmm.
making the physical part match the mental part.
Yeah.
So, uh, yeah. So this has been awesome. Actually, it's been, I think, a really good
good
topic.
good conversation. Yeah.
It's
Um
there's been a lot of reflecting, and we watched Inside Out too. We've watched that a couple times now.
Oh, I still
Uh,
haven't seen it. I'm waiting for it to come out on Disney Plus.
it's it's interesting. It's emotions for sure.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was just I was just telling the kids when they were watching it, like I noticed that in the beginning of it, you have like I won't spoil it at all, but you have these emotions from the first one, right? And they're all like a
Mhm.
collective group of we belong together emotions.
Yeah.
Like they're like a family. Well, in the new one, puberty emotions show up. And so I realized you have like a whole new family of emotions that moved in. And
Yeah.
now you have two families of emotions trying to cohabitate together and live
Everybody's
together.
gotta come to terms with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at it in a different perspective. I'm like, oh, I see you. And I'm watching it going, don't do that. Don't make that choice. What are you doing? Do you know where this is gonna turn out? So
Oh, I do that. We were watching what we were watching. We were watching Aliens the other day, like the newer Aliens, and there was one that I hadn't seen yet. It's like the second prequel, and of course they're gonna do all the things that they shouldn't. I'm standing there going, "Don't do it. Don't go in there. Don't do it. It's a bad idea." And then they go in, and I'm like, "See, I told you. Nobody ever listens to me." And my husband's just like, "You're a dork."
like I knew it was gonna turn out this way.
Yep,
But if it was my own life, I wouldn't be saying that.
self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, so last episode, the inner child challenge that we gave was to make a commitment to yourself, a small commitment, and follow it through, because that's how we build trust with ourselves. So what was your commitment, Josh?
My commitment was actually showing up more often to post more regularly. And my commitment along with that was to make sure I am doing some form of research each day. Even if it was a small amount, it was still amount, but the research had to be towards what it is that I wanted to do in my life. And I have found myself, other than this last week of being sick, I have
Yeah.
found myself actually doing that a lot more. The
Mhm.
only thing I didn't have the follow through on, which I wish I had, was going live a lot more.
Yeah.
But other than that, I
Goals for the
actually showed
future.
up. Exactly. Yeah, you need something to work on. What
Mine
about you?
was uh mine was balance. I have 3 kids. all below 18. And so life can get crazy with, church functions and doctor's appointments and back to school night and everything. So my promise to myself was I was going to work on balance to start bringing down that level of stress and overwhelm. And so, like, at the beginning of each week, I'd look at my calendar and go, okay, this is what I have to get done on these days. These are the absolutely have to happen, cannot get out of it. So, how am I going to take care of my body so that I'm physically capable of going to do these things without triggering a health episode for myself? And I have found that, like, this week was easier. There wasn't a whole lot going on, but last week, oh my gosh, I had so many appointments that I had to get everybody to. But I did find that, like, having that plan in place for myself and knowing, okay, this day's a busy day and then I get to rest on this day and do whatever, it did really help to bring down that level of stress and pressure. So hopefully you guys were able to make a commitment to yourselves and follow through on it. If you did, we'd love to hear about it in our Facebook group, which the link is in the description below. And starting next month, we're going to be playing Inner Child Bingo. So we have a document up in the group, and if you want to join us on that, it's going to be a lot of fun. I already have my card all filled out. I'm prepped and ready to go. So if you want to learn more about that, come and join us in the Facebook group and come play with us and have some fun. And then if you want to learn more about our topic tonight, there are also articles in the description below where you can go and read up more on it.
Awesome. Unfortunately, my card is still blank and waiting to be in the printer queue.
Well, that's
So
okay. I'm taking the head on this, so I knew I had to have my card done as an example, so I did my homework.
I probably would have had it done if I wasn't so down and out that whole week. I'm telling you, that week was just I had nothing in me.
Sick
Nothing.
leave is a valid
Yeah.
reason for, hey man, that's self-care. When you're sick and miserable, that to-do list is just like, not today.
I haven't been like that since 2019. So 5 years I haven't been sick like that. So
Oh, I'm so jealous.
yeah.
Even when I don't have a bug, I'm like, okay.
Oh, and it ran the house. Everybody got something. Other than like my mom was the
Oh.
only one that did not get hit with anything, thankfully.
Oh, that's
Uh
good.
yeah, and she had COPD, so that was the last thing she would need.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
thankfully she didn't. But everybody else, man, everybody else, it ran their course through us. It was
We had
uh
we had a couple bugs that ran through our house too, but everyone is back on the path to good health. And here's hoping that you guys are in good health as well. Flu shots. Be careful of those nasty bugs.
they'll get you.
And then next time in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about bullying and self-esteem. There have been some pretty heartbreaking stories out there that we've seen, and I personally have some personal experiences that I can definitely share on that one for. So
Yeah, same here. I'll be honest. I was on both ends of it.
yeah,
When I was younger, I did the bullying in some cases, and in other cases, I also was bullied, depending on the scenario where I was at.
I
So
was the suicide risk. 13 years old, I made my first attempt.
so it can be bad. I think isn't September bully awareness?
I September is suicide
That's what
awareness.
it was. Yeah.
So, yeah, we thought it would be a good topic considering that it's the awareness focus for the month to have a discussion about how bullying and self-esteem can make that a very real risk
Yeah.
for people, and signs to look out for so that you can help them before they get to the point where they're in so much pain that they make that ultimate choice.
I was watching real quick. I was watching TikTok the other night, and there was there's 3 people that were on it. It was a live stream, and there
Mhm.
was 2 guys and then a girl, and the 2 guys, one of them was much younger, and the older one had a shirt on that said "Stop bullying," and he's really about anti-bullying.
Yeah.
Well, the whole time I'm watching this live, he's sitting here bullying the other person. Like they're sitting there going back and forth and but like just bullying each other. And it was like if your shirt says stop bullying, like why are you
That's a bit of a contradiction.
a little bit? And then the female that was on there called him out for it. And then the live stream ended not long after that. And I was like,
Ooh, ouch.
so it's like
Well then.
you're gonna promote something, like you gotta live by it. Like otherwise it doesn't count, in my opinion.
Yeah. What you if what you do is different than what you say, there's
Then
some inconsistency there that needs to have some attention.
exactly. So come join us on the 12th at same time, 8 p.m., same place. Until then, though, don't forget to join our Facebook group, the Inner Child Outer Adults. We have activity going on in there. We're constantly trying to post as much as possible. The more interactive, the better.
We've got some cool people in there so far, so come join the group and have some fun reconnecting with your playful side.
We want it to be very engaging. So the more engagement we have, the better it's going to be. The more we can be there for each other, and we want it just to be fun, like lots of fun. So we don't want it to be a space that's just that lower vibration of energy where everybody is just in that depressed or anxious, or we know that everybody's going through things. Everybody's healing. Everybody's going through their stuff. You good? All right. Hey, I gotta jump off real quick.
All right.
All
I'll
right.
close this out. We'll see you next
All
time,
right.
guys. September 12th. Catch you later.